Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy Andrew coming at you, and in this one, I thought it'd be fun to talk about 5 myths that Americans always get wrong about Sweden. When I go back to the States, I get asked questions all the time, and a lot of them are incorrect, and I thought I would share with you the most common ones that I get, and we'll go into it and we'll explain it together. I wrote some stuff down. I got my coffee ready to go, so we're going to take a little fika together. One of the things that a lot of Americans make the mistake of when they're talking about Sweden is they always call Sweden Switzerland, or they get the two countries confused. A lot of times I think they have the best intentions, but one thing I want to say about Americans is we are not as well traveled, but I gotta make an excuse here, and let me make this excuse. When you're only getting 1 to 2 weeks vacation, and in some cases people get 3 weeks vacation if they've been working a longer time, it is a big investment to go and travel to another country. So for a lot of people it's tough, or maybe they can't afford it, or if you're living in Europe, like me going from Pittsburgh to New York City is like going from Sweden to Norway, for example. It's about the same distance, and you can just hop on a train. You don't even need a flight. And a lot of European countries, you can just drive around everywhere, and that makes it much easier, I think, to be well-traveled. But I will say overall, I would consider Swedes to be more well-traveled than Americans, but I do think we do a good job. It's just not enough. Let's say like 20, 30% of the population is well-traveled. A lot of people can afford it or can't afford it. And so when they're talking about it and they're asking me questions, they're always getting that confused. What part of Switzerland are you from? How do you like Switzerland? Then you got to usually say Sweden. And I got to tell you, if you're a Swede, it'll totally trigger you. I can tell you so many Swedes tell me it triggers them, especially those that go to the U.S. and they constantly get asked this question about Switzerland. It's just a mistake. Americans could do a better job at geography. I was fortunate enough to have a really great teacher who made me memorize all the countries and capitals in the world. And I don't know every single one now, but I'm pretty good at geography. I think geography is really important. The understanding of the world is important. And when you're in America, sometimes you're just stuck in that bubble. And yeah, you can go to Canada. Yeah, you can go to Mexico. But for a lot of people, if you're in the middle of the state, maybe that costs everything. It's just really tough. But I hope more Americans can travel in the future. Number 2, I got asked this question a lot when I first came to Sweden. For some reason, a lot of Americans think that Sweden and a lot of European countries are all like Amsterdam as far as their laws go. So a lot of people thought that MJ is legal in Sweden. It is not. It is a big deal here. And number 2, I always get asked if prostitution is legal. Again, these were questions that people asked because they were curious, because they just thought that Sweden had very liberal laws like a lot of countries do. And in the case in Sweden, I can say this: prostitution is legal if you are the person who is the prostitute, but it is illegal to buy. This is a law in place in Sweden to help protect women who are most likely going to work in that profession, and maybe are in that situation for bad circumstances. So it's a law in place to protect them, but it's still not legal. It is against, if you are a person buying that service, it is illegal. You shouldn't do it. And again, it's just a way to protect women. So that's how I would answer that question. But for some reason, a lot of people think that. Kitty, can I do my video, Kitty? Number 3, I get this question a lot as well. Everybody thinks people in Sweden are all blonde and blue-eyed, and I get this question a lot. I will say there are a lot more blonde and blue-eyed people, women and men, in Sweden than you would typically see in the United States, or if you're going to go to some other countries. So it is there, but in my experience, it's very common for there to be, red hair is less common, of course, but it's very common for people to be brunette, blonde. I've seen red hair. Not everybody looks the same as Swedish, but I will say that there is a European look. I see that. With Swedish people, it's like a facial structure thing where I can look at someone and be like, yeah, you're definitely Swedish, where maybe an American doesn't have that, because Americans, we tend to be such a cultural mixing pot, where I think I see there's more of a European look. There's more of a Swedish look. But yes, not everybody is blonde and blue-eyed. It is definitely a bit of a stereotype. This is another question I get asked. I see this in the comments and stuff in general. And this has to do with the negative sides of socialism. See, Americans always hear of the horror of socialism.
America's the greatest country in the world. We need conservatives in Washington that will keep it that way. I'm running to stop gun control. Open borders, the Green New Deal, and socialism.
Cuba, for example, and other countries that had socialism that have collapsed, they usually fail to recognize that America put a lot of sanctions on these countries. Like even if you look at a country like Cuba, it'd be interesting to see what Cuba could have done if it wasn't so heavily sanctioned by the United States. But Sweden is a democracy with a strong social safety net where a lot of taxes go to that. Instead of bombing countries overseas and putting our money towards that, like we do in America, they say, hey, let's actually use that money for our own people and try to make their lives better. I prefer that system, to be honest. And then wanting free stuff. I hear this comment all the time from Americans about free stuff, wanting free stuff. I'll tell you this. I was in the middle of a job transition once here in Sweden, and it was possible that I might have needed Al-Casa. I could have even applied for Al-Casa. But luckily, I was able to fix my situation. This was just due to the pandemic and things I had to deal with. And they do. They have, you can go and you can get that, you can search for another job. And I will tell you, just going through the job process to try to get Al-Casa and going through the proper channels and doing that, I felt terrible. Like, it was so challenging to even get it started. I felt like such a terrible person while going through the process. And then, and I don't mean it in a bad way. I'm just trying to say that, on top of that, when you are getting the free stuff, you have to be looking for a job. You have to be proving you're looking for a job. They have so many things in place to try to make sure that people don't abuse the system, that when you're in that situation, you already feel terrible. Like, I felt terrible. It was out of my control. It was the pandemic that was causing it. But I felt so terrible. Luckily, I was able to sort out my situation. But I would say that you don't have a bunch of Swedes just wanting free stuff. It's just considered a part of the culture and benefit. This idea that I often hear in the States, oh, you just want free things, oh, you don't want to work hard. I really don't understand, because the harder people work in America, the incomes don't go up. That's a big issue. That's a big issue why people aren't there, or there's no job there anymore. I saw an interesting comment someone had on Twitter that was like, go to college or you'll be flipping burgers. And then they said, are you too good to be flipping burgers? What, you want $15 an hour to flip burgers? And it really kind of shows the American attitude towards this, where I think that a lot of people would benefit from having a strong social safety net. Going back to what I said earlier about Sweden having really harsh MJ and just those type of laws in general, and it has to do with the fact that if you're going to use the strong social safety net, you are considered, you have to be responsible and take care of yourself. You will not be looked at goodly if you make a lot of very bad, unhealthy decisions. It is something in Sweden that they see. So that would mean if we had the same thing in the States, you wouldn't be going and buying a huge drink, and drink sizes would be massive all the time. The funny thing is, I feel like a lot of Americans will be more up in arms about not being able to get a big gulp than providing healthcare for everybody. Right? That's just something I've noticed over the years. The last myth that people always come, or they ask me, they talk about this with me, is that taxes are too high in Sweden. So I gotta say that yes, taxes are high in Sweden, and let's just use me for an example. I want to talk about what tax bracket I'm in, and then what tax bracket I would be in the States. I would say roughly, if I was in the U.S. working, I looked at the tax rate, I would be paying about 22% in taxes. Whereas in Sweden, I'm paying about 28% in tax. When you get up to a certain point, your income starts to get taxed at 50%. But this is but it's just the money you make over that point. So let's say the cutoff rate is 40,000 Swedish crowns. Once you hit 40,000 Swedish crowns, anything above that, for example, is going to be taxed at 50%. Yes, that's a bummer. And I'll often hear Americans talk to me about, oh, well, I wouldn't get a chance to be wealthy, because a lot of Americans that are against these things think they're all going to be Bill Gates or Elon Musk, and don't realize that they're actually going to be hurt by the system. But my argument to this is this. It's not that big of a tax rate change. I will say that taxes are higher if I want to buy items and things like that. If I want to buy a computer, I'm going to pay higher tax rate. But Europeans tend to have a lot less stuff, but they live a good quality life. And my argument to this is 22% tax rate in the States. And then let's say the average American is $50,000 in debt and will have health problems over the course of their lives that's going to cost out of pocket for them for a lot of Americans. Whereas you're making less money in Sweden, possibly because you're making a higher tax rate, but you don't have to worry if you get sick, and you're also set up better when you go to college and education. I think people don't realize, I'm paying 5,000 crowns a month towards my student loans, where like a Swede is paying like 1,000. So when people are thinking about being really wealthy and having a huge salary, just imagine if I could take that 5,000 I'm paying to the US and then put that in a retirement account or an investment account. You would be way more wealthy than you would be if you're in the States and you're in the opposite situation, paying off all these bills. I mean, there's so many Americans that are struggling to even like buy a home at sometimes. So I think people miss that. So I would actually say that I think that most Swedes, if they take advantage of the right way, if they invest smartly, if they save their money smartly, are better set up than the majority of Americans in the United States. So these are the 5 myths that I typically hear that people bring up either in the comments or real life. And I was just curious, what did I miss? What are some things that people have said to you when you've traveled to the States? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? By the way, if you like this t-shirt and want to support me in any way, this is my clothing brand, Nordic Streets. The link is in the description, and I can pin it in the comments. It's a great quality shirt. You will not find a quality shirt for this price. And what's really cool about this shirt is this is actually where this was the view from my apartment when I would leave it when I first came to Sweden. This is actually a part of Linköping that I really, really liked. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see y'all. Actually, I'm from Pittsburgh. I'll see yins, or yins. Pittsburgh, we say yins. I'll see yins in the next one. Hello.